Okay, you guys, you have given me chills with all of your miracle stories that you wrote into me. Okay, I was so excited to see all of the miracle stories that you wrote in my comments, and I cannot wait to share them with you because some of these are good. Okay, so this first comment, which is amazing, came from a paramedic, and you know I love paramedics. They are amazing and always have amazing stories. So here we go. I was a paramedic for over a decade. I've experienced something very close to yours. We coded a lady in the ER and ended up calling time of death. The family came in and prayed, cried, and prayed more. The patient suddenly took a deep breath and was in normal sinus rhythm, which just means they had a normal heartbeat. I ended up transferring her to a different hospital that night. I held this lady's hand as she died. She was dead. And then she wasn't. God is real. That's wild. That is wild to have someone. So to actually declare someone dead, that means that they have been dead for a while. Because you're usually doing a bunch of stuff if you're a paramedic to try to make them not dead. So if you do all this stuff and then declare them dead, and then their family comes in, prays, cries, prays, and then suddenly they're not dead, that is pretty wild. Okay, here's a good one. This one comes from an oncology nurse. Again, I love you guys. Oncology nurses? Pediatric oncology nurse. Come on now. Okay, hi Julie. I worked as an oncology nurse at Children's Hospital in the 90s. The 90s was a great decade. One day I was caring for a 12-year-old girl who was dying of leukemia. She was there alone, and it was a very peaceful night. She slept most of the night, and her parents were not there, but at one point during the night, she woke up and asked me where the man went. I said, "What man?" She said, "There's been a man sitting in that rocking chair over there, next to her bed." Our unit was locked that night, and we knew everyone who was on the floor, and there was definitely no man visible to me when I came into the room to see her. However, she died peacefully at 7 a.m. that morning. Okay, I think this is amazing because I think what she's trying to say was, it was a peaceful night. This young girl was sleeping through the night. She went in to go check on her. The girl asked her what happened to the man who was in the room. There definitely was no man in the room. And then she died peacefully that morning. So I feel like they must think it was a visitation of someone. Some being, some angel. Like we said, this is an angel miracle story. So I do think children in general seem to see people that we don't always see. What do you guys think? I know my friends with children say that their kids say the craziest things sometimes. Thank you for writing in, and thank you for being an oncology nurse. You're amazing. Okay, this next one is a straight up like angel story. So I know we talked about me talking about a miracle I witnessed and then an angel that I think I saw. So this comment was about an angel that they also saw, two actually. During a very stressful time in my life, I had two angels visit me. They were large, over 8 feet tall, solid with wings folded back, and also felt like strength and power. They were there for me, a gift for me, to help me in the situation I was faced. They were incredibly beautiful, and I felt immediately at ease. So, like you, they were not frilly little things, but strong and powerful and there for a purpose. Oh, I love that one. Yeah, I hear a lot of people talking about different angel visits and talking about how, they're portrayed as these little like baby angels or these little like twinkly fairy things. And most people who talk about witnessing angels seem to have a different experience. Okay, this one's a little longer, but it's worth the wait. It's really good. Here we go. And it's from a hospice nurse. I swear to God, I'm not just trying to pick people who only work in healthcare, but I think a lot of people who work in healthcare have these kind of stories. I'm a hospice nurse also, but this comment is about my own father. He passed away suddenly at the age of 63, 32 years ago. Because I'm a nurse, I wanted to dress him for his wake and make sure everything was perfect. He was always a well-dressed man, so after I convinced the funeral director that I'd be just fine, he allowed me to do so. As I was with my dad fussing over his suit and shoes, I became aware of a maintenance man sweeping slowly in the back of the room. At the time I thought, how sweet. They are just making sure I'm okay. After I finished making sure his shoes were polished and that he had change in his pocket, he always had change, always, she says, I kissed him goodbye and went to go thank the director. I also thanked him for the maintenance man in the room because it did make me feel at ease. He looked at the mortician and then said that there was no one else there except for them. Here's the kicker. My dad had always told us kids that no matter what, even if you choose to be a broom pusher, be the best broom pusher that ever was. It was my dad's spirit in the room with me that day, and I believe in miracles. I love this. I love this. I love that you are so comfortable caring for your dad. I love when I'm sure that felt a little almost shocking at first when you for sure saw this maintenance man in the room and then they tell you that there was no one there except for them. But I think it's amazing. I mean, you just never know how our loved ones can support us. And did you go back down there and check to see if there was really a maintenance man? Okay, these next comments are from my visioning video where I talk about how people vision at the end of life and have deathbed visions of their dead relative, dead loved ones. And then of course, I get a million comments about other people who have experienced this, and they are always so amazing and so wild. My father-in-law went through this while he was dying, meaning he went through some visioning. He wasn't on any medications and was coherent until his death. Personally, I believe it's because dying people are so close to the veil between life and death that the barriers aren't there anymore, so they can see and hear loved ones or angels. Sometimes it's people we don't even know, like my father-in-law. So his father-in-law kept seeing a man who told him that it was time to go. But the father-in-law kept telling the man, I'm not ready yet. I don't want to take that leap yet. That man stayed and waited for his father-in-law, he said. And on the day he died, he said, well, I guess I might as well go with him since he won't leave me alone anyway. It was that matter of fact, and he did die that day. I have seen this too. Not most people see dead relatives and dead loved ones, but a lot of times people will also see people who they don't know, but they feel very comforted by, and like they don't recognize them, but they feel like they know them. And those people usually hang around and say that they are coming to help basically transfer them over to the other side. Here is the last one. And again, it's a little long, but it is worth the wait. So stick with me here. It's from a hospice nurse, of course. In the early 2000s, I was a new hospice nurse, having been on the job for less than 6 months. My first visit of the day was a female patient living in a nursing home. We'll call her Hazel. Hazel was in her 80s and with the hospice diagnosis of end-stage Alzheimer's disease, which you guys know means memory issues. I entered Hazel's room and she was sitting at the edge of her bed, awake and alert. I greeted Hazel and introduced myself. I assessed her to be alert only to herself, which means she doesn't know what date it is, where she is, but she knows that her name is Hazel and who she is. So as I proceeded with my physical assessment, Hazel started crying and became very agitated. Also not really abnormal for Alzheimer's patients. But she didn't really think much of it. Her speech was kind of garbled, nonsensical. But then after a couple minutes, things changed, she said. Hazel's crying turned to sobbing, which is not normal. I tried comforting her. Hazel, can you tell me what's upsetting you? Now suddenly her speech became much more coherent. She started stringing together meaningful thoughts and able to actually say what was causing her to be so sad. And she said, my sister died. Oh, my poor sister, she died. Keep in mind, Hazel had continued to sob uncontrollably as she was talking about this. And remember that a lot of times people with Alzheimer's will forget and then remember, forget and then remember. So this nurse was saying how she just thought that Hazel was remembering again that her sister had died. So she's just kind of re-grieving the death of her sister. So she sat there with Hazel for a while and tried to calm her down. Again, it's not really uncommon for this to happen. So she just assumed that Hazel has been dead for a long time that Hazel's sister has been dead for a long time, and she was just remembering it. So after she left Hazel's room, after she calmed her down, she went to the nurse's station to give report and just to let them know that like, hey, Miss Hazel's a little upset today. She's kind of having moments where she's remembering that her sister's dead, and just to check on her, sometime soon. When she said this to the nurse, her jaw dropped and said, how did you know her sister died? And she was like, oh, well, she just told me. I just assumed she has been dead. And she was like, no, her family members specifically said not to tell her that her sister died. And this nurse is like, what are you talking about? Apparently, her sister had just died. And they were never going to tell Hazel ever, because they knew that Hazel would go through this period of always forgetting and remembering, so they were just never going to tell her. So her sister had just died. They had never told Hazel that her sister died. And when they went back in the room to talk to her, she told them that her sister came to her and said she had died. And again, still crying and knowing that her sister was dying, that her sister had died. Which shows that people do visit when they die. So they think that her sister visited her, said that she had died, and that is how Hazel knew, because no one had told her. That is wild. And I think that when Hazel dies, her sister will likely be there to usher her home. But thank you for that story. That is from a hospice chaplain, actually, Dave the chaplain. Thank you. That's amazing. It's amazing in the sense of, it's sad for Hazel, obviously, but it's also amazing to know that something like Hazel should never have known that. And then she did, and actually clearly said, my sister came and told me she died. Thank you so much, you guys. These stories are so amazing. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. I feel like you guys always enjoy my videos about my experiences, seeing angels, miracle stories, visioning stories, so I wanted to share with you the ones that I get to read in the comments. If you have more, don't be afraid to share them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more death and dying information.